right, hello. I hope everyone is doing well. I am just setting up, making some last minute adjustments to what I wanted to share today. I actually prepared some slides so that you guys will have some things you can screenshot if they are useful to you. So I'm hoping that these will prove useful. Hello, Jay. Good to see you. I'm glad you were able to make it. Let me go ahead and flip screens. We're not going to play any music on today's stream. I just didn't have enough time to set that up and do a little slide deck for us. So we're going to go ahead and just go a little bit soundtrack less. I hope that's okay. But Jay, good to see you. I'm glad you made it. I'm hoping that anyone else who is in the final stretch for this will have their opportunity to review this either live or after the fact, and hopefully it's going to help them. We are in the final push as of 4 minutes ago. We hit the 1 month exactly to the cutoff date and time. So here we are, and we're going to look at this 2025 final push, and hopefully this is going to help everyone stay on top of their schedules. So I'm going to go ahead and there we go, to the next slide. That's what I was trying to say. This is my first time manually doing a Canva slide deck, I think, so we're going to figure it out as we go. But I'm going to present what I'm going to call the 20-60-20 rule. And basically, I've broken down the chapter making process, or the comic making process, into this sort of percentile where 20% of what you're doing, of how you're spending your time, is spent on the planning. And by planning, I mean your thumbnailing, your basic panel sketches, any scripting adjustments that you might want to do. That all comes under the planning umbrella. And not everybody does their comics the same way. Each individual creator has a unique process that works for them, but in general, we all sort of follow the same linear process from, from a bit of a bird's eye view, And I'm going to try to suggest some calendars that I think are going to work for different people. The 60% goes to your line art, and that's, doing your base sketches, not like your thumbnail sketches, but like your base sketches where you're figuring out the actual details, the backgrounds, you're finalizing anatomy, and you're doing your final line art pass. And so each artist does their own number of passes when it comes to line art. And I do feel that in general, let me know if you feel differently, how you would break up your percentiles, if you would do 20-60-20, or if you maybe feel that 60% of your time isn't actually spent on the drawing. But I think, I don't know if you guys can hear that, there's a helicopter flying by, it's so loud. I think it's a pretty common assumption, pretty commonality to allocate maybe 60% of your time spent on your line art, on refining your drawing. And then the last 20% I have basically set aside as coloring. 20% goes into coloring once your line art is finalized, your background is finalized. Then you might spend another 20% of your overall 100% of time. 20% of that would go into coloring. And like I mentioned right at the top of the stream, there are exactly 30 days left before we finish this contest. And 20 of those days are going to be weekdays, and 10 of them are going to be weekend days. So we're going to go ahead and break down what that looks like. And I just, 1 second, because I do kind of want to, I forgot to drop an @ for this in the Discord, so give me a second. Hopefully that didn't take too long. I know Jay's on it. Jay's here on time. Early is on time. On time is late if you're in the military, which I am not anymore. So on time is on time. All right, so I also wanted to further explain, so rationing time, before we can ration the 20-60-20% of our time, we first have to know what 100% looks like. And that is going to depend on each individual person's personal schedules. And I went ahead and did 2 breakouts, 2 different possible or potential schedules. And we're going to start with what it looks like if you are working full-time or going to school full-time. So this one is for the full-timers. And your total work week hours based on, I'm assuming 2 hours a day after your work or school day, you might have a maximum of 2 hours each work week day to put into your comic. That is just an assumption I'm making here. It's a generalization. If it's different for you, you can make adjustments that work for you, but this is just kind of what has worked for me in the past. And so I'm going to go ahead and use that as my baseline for this schedule that we're going to write in a second. And that 2 hours a workday maximum with the current month that we have left between now and deadline, now and cutoff, gives you a total of 40 hours of comic creation time. And then for your total weekend hours based on an 8-hour weekend day, so assuming that you're really hustling between now and May 15 when the comic cuts off, you are doing a full 8-hour day on your Saturdays and Sundays here moving forward because you really want to make sure that you are delivering before the deadline. Then your schedule will provide you with 8 total hours of comic creation using on the weekends, 80 total hours on the weekends. Add those 80 and 40 together, and this is what it's going to look like. So this might be the part that you might be interested in screenshotting. I don't know. I could be making assumptions. I'm going to move my head out of the way a little bit so this is a little more legible because I don't want to cover it up. And this is basically starting tomorrow with 2 hours Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and 8 hours on Saturday and Sunday, what your schedule would look like to get you all the way to May 15th, which is actually a Thursday, so I do feel like I didn't do something right here. Something is up. Because it should end on a Thursday. So, in order to fix that, I need to first unlock this. We're going to do this live. I might clean it up afterwards when the stream's over. So I apologize for that. You guys are going to get through this with me live. So we said, but I promise we're going to get it right so that this resource is going to be actually functioning, actually useful. So again, 16th, 23rd, 30th, 7th, and 14th. This is the last day of the contest, which is Thursday the 15th. But let's bear in mind one very important point now that we're looking at this. This is the correct one without too many weeks. This calendar just has one too many weeks. I apologize for that on this bottom row here. But this will technically take you all the way through Thursday, May 15th, right here, the last 2. And keep in mind this day, the cutoff to submit ends at exactly 6 p.m. PST on this Thursday. So if you are planning to put 2 more extra hours into this, and that really should be after coloring, there is like actually one more step, and that's submitting. Like you have to format your files and submit them, which takes a little bit of time. I usually just do that on its own day. But if you're finishing your coloring here, you need to spend these last 2 hours just formatting your files and running them through Croppy so that you can get them splicing your files and uploading them to Webtoon if you are really down to the wire. And these last 2 hours have to happen before 6 p.m. PST. And if you're in a different time zone, you got to do the time zone conversion. Make sure you're not saving them till the end of the day because the end of the day might be too late. You got to do these earlier. If you're not going to have time to do this before school or work, I would definitely try to wake up earlier to do it, or stay up later the night before to do it here, just to make sure you're not missing the deadline by trying to do it after school or after work. All right, moving on, we are going to go ahead and take a look at rationing time for what I'm calling the spring breaker. And the spring breaker is going to be somebody who either is like actually literally on spring break, which is possible. I don't know what spring break is. It's different across the country and maybe even in different countries. I know in America, like every school has their own week of spring break. They're not all unified. So, Art Breaker, you made it. Hello and welcome to the stream. We just went over a schedule for if you're a full-timer. This is kind of how you could break up your time as a full-timer. My percentile is actually, the blue might be off on this bottom one because I just adjusted the last week. I think we might have like, yeah, we're missing one. Let me correct that one last time. Copy, paste, because we're supposed to have a blue right here. Perfect. Present. So, full screen mode. One last time. I'm really trying, you guys. I'm so sorry for the last minute edits. I spent all day at the DMV. That's why this is so last minute. I had planned this. I thought I would have all day to make this slideshow. And then I got stuck at the DMV literally the entire day, but that's another story. Okay, so I literally, when I go back and edit this stream, I will cut out where I said before to take your screenshots so that people know when they actually need to take their screenshot is right now that I have edited our bottom 20% with the little blue indicators. So this is actually what your time looks like in 2060-20. If my math is off, I apologize. I did do it with a calculator, so this isn't, I didn't like try to brain power my way through this. I trusted the calculator, but feel free to check my work if you want to. But yeah, these are kind of my suggestions if you are a full-timer. So for full-time work, full-time school, these are the breakdowns that I would recommend you use to try and space out your time, leaving 20% for planning, thumbnailing, scripting, revisions, things like that up front here in this top blue portion. That's where you're going to be doing your planning, your thumbnailing, your script revisions right up here. Once you hit like next Tuesday, you really want to start all of your line work. So all your sketches, all your backgrounds, all your final line art, all of that needs to be done by like Friday. And then here you're going to start on the final Saturday before the cutoff. So that is Saturday, May 10th is what this one is right here. This is Saturday, May 10th. You're going to want to be coloring by this day. You need to like start coloring on this day in order, and that gives you a little less than a week to do colors. And you really kind of want to save this last day for uploading. That's my personal opinion. But yeah, this is just sort of a recommendation for a full-timer. And for our spring breakers, here is what I worked out. And again, feel free to check my math because I was in a hurry after being stuck at the DMV. I did this all pretty quickly. And we're gonna have to make some fixes to the calendar on the next page because I know that there's an extra week on there that I didn't mean to put. So we're gonna fix that. But first, we're gonna go through this data here. Sorry, I had to take a drink of water. All right, so again with the 20-60-20 rule, feel free to adjust those numbers based on your own work style. If you know you spend more time on thumbnailing, but you are pretty quick with your line art or something, you can make it 30-40-20. Or if you know coloring takes you a lot longer, you can do 20-40-30, something like that. Just make sure that if you're going to make changes here, you make changes on the calendar on the next page as well. Looking at this, though, as a 20-60-40 for the amount of time that is left between now and cutoff of the contest, a total number of work week hours, I based this on an 8-hour workday. So if you are a spring breaker and you're going to spend 8 hours a day, like it was a regular job, working on your comic between now and the deadline, then you would have a total of 160 hours. And that is actually more than the week days and weekend days combined on the last calendar. And because of that, because this is actually bigger than this whole thing here, I gave like the weekends like basically proper weekends. If you're going to be working full time on your comic during the week, you need a break. You're going to be so mentally exhausted and sick of looking at your comic at this point that I figured for weekends, maybe plug 2 hours and then go touch grass. And you can, and I feel like with 160 total hours during the week, you can kind of afford to do that. So this would provide 20 hours maximum on the weekend if you're putting 2 hours total on the weekend. So this is for our full-time comic makers, essentially, or if you're like a spring breaker, because that's what I called it on the last slide. And again, the blue represents top 20% and bottom 20%, and left in the middle is the middle 60%. Again, with Thursday here being the cutoff time, 6 p.m. PST, are you really going to get 8 hours in on Thursday? Probably not. Unless you start at 9 or 10 a.m. PST, then maybe, yeah, you could do an 8-hour day and still make the cutoff. But however you decide to use this time on this day, which is probably what I will do if I'm really running down to the wire, but my plan is to actually deliver up here this day, Friday the 9th. Yeah, Friday the 9th is when I want to drop my 3rd chapter. This is what I'm aiming for right here, and Artbreakers knows that. We've talked about it. But essentially, if you are working all the way until this final Thursday the 15th of May, right here, make sure that you're not just coloring on this day, that you leave room for formatting your files, so running them through Copy if that's what you use, splicing your files, making sure that they fit the requirements for uploading to Webtoon, and then actually uploading and submitting them. So that this day comes with a big asterisk on it, no matter which calendar you're looking at. So if you are planning to spend your spring break, or if you're working on this full time, which is my intention moving forward, go ahead and take a screenshot of this now. Once again, just, feel free to check my work if that's something that you want to do. And I do encourage you to do that, because 4 eyes are better than 2. And 2 heads are better than 1. So I do encourage you to check my work, but this is just sort of like my thinking method, and I hope that it's helpful. And if you want to personalize it in any way, absolutely do that. Personalize it however best works for you. And the reason why I put these numbers like this and not like this saying like Wednesday, April 16th or something, I have an 8 here, an 8 here, an 8 here, and then in the other calendar it was 2228, is because these are the number of hours per day you're committing to your comic work. And you can add the actual date numbers for the calendars up in these little round circles. I really just didn't have time before the stream, or I would have done that myself and probably would have caught this extra row issue then. All right, so other things to consider. If you are working as a team, then this calendar is going to only get you so far. You need to communicate with each other. Artbreaker and I are going to have to stay in communication and make sure that we are meeting our own personal deadlines so that we know that we're staying ahead of our due dates. And there are some benefits and some drawbacks to working on a team when it comes to scheduling. One of them is you might be able to overlap some of your hours. So, for example, when I finish a sheet or a noodle, as Webtoon calls it in their newsletter, I send that noodle that's already finished to Artbreaker to color before I even start drawing the next one. That way she could technically be coloring at the same time that I'm drawing the next page. That allows us to kind of double up our available time, which is really nice. But you also might, on the other end of the spectrum, end up in a hurry up and wait pattern, which also could happen if you're, say, Artbreaker, you're the colorist, or if you're maybe the background artist, if you're working in a team where one of you is the writer illustrator and the other person's the background artist or something like that, and then the background artist has to wait for the writer to send the thumbnails or something to them. So there might be a little bit of a slinky effect there where you're on a hold and you can't do anything until your partner sends you the material you need to carry the baton the next leg of the race. I would love to hear you guys' feedback. I did want to go into other things like adding marketing into your plan if you have time, but to be truthfully honest, I just did not have time. So my marketing slide is like, I think it's even hidden. It's hidden. So I didn't even get to that part. And then I hid the slide. But I do really want these to be really useful to you. I know it's only taken me 30 minutes to get through this whole thing. So if you guys have questions, ask me. You can ask in the chat for as long as we're still live. And you can ask in the comments if you're watching this after the fact. So I'm just going to back up real quick to this first slide here. This isn't the first slide. Technically, this is the first slide. But to here, because I think that some of you might have missed the reason why we're doing the 20-60-20 rule. And this is basically it. It's 20% is planning, thumbnailing, scripting, adjustments like to your scripting, panel planning, which is usually thumbnailing. Things like that is all your first 20% of your schedule. 60% is the actual drawing and refining, so that's backgrounds and line art. And then the last 20% is coloring and uploading. So you want to make sure you're formatting and uploading as well when you get towards the end of your schedule. You gotta leave a little room, just a little bit of room for that. That is literally all I've got for this video. It could have been an edited video, but I just thought streaming it would be faster, so I planned it for stream. I hope you guys are doing great. I hope you're having a lot of fun with your contest entries. And oh, another thing, if you want to share the title and genre of your contest entry, add them to the comments below, because another thing that I have definitely been a really big supporter of when it comes to this contest and all my other streams and in my other videos is being a supportive community for each other. So not just I want you guys to read my stuff, which I do, but I want to read your stuff, and I want us to be able to have an open dialogue and to feel like a community and not be like just creating in the void and just sort of like losing all sense of time and relativity to like the rest of the waking world. All right, so I guess with that said, I should at the very least pull up my comic and show you guys which one it is. So I'm going to go ahead and maximize this screen. And here we have it. This one is the one that I have entered in the contest. It is Love Cursed Queen of Rogues, currently sitting at 55 subscribers. And it looks like 74 likes. I don't know about comments. I would have to open each one up to figure that out. But being halfway through the contest, that's still very, very modest numbers. I would be very appreciative for any eyeballs I could get on the contest, any engagement that you guys could offer, whether it's a comment to let me know which panel was your favorite, or which characters maybe you like or dislike. Stuff like that would be really helpful feedback for me, and I would really like that. So please don't be shy. Feel free to add those remarks in the Webtoon app itself. I do love getting comments on YouTube, and if you want to comment on all this scheduling stuff we talked about, absolutely add those comments here in the YouTube video. But one thing I would really like to be able to do, and I'm going to drop that here, is get comic related comments on the comic itself. So please do consider leaving a comment there. And before I close out, I'm just going to run through these slides. I'm not going to talk through them again. I'm just going to flip through them again so that if anybody didn't get the screenshot they wanted, they still can. So let's go ahead and take a quick look. This is the slide where we explain the 20-60-20 rule and the breakdown for how many days we have left for the contest starting today. So that's 30 days, 20 weekdays, 10 weekend days. Rationing time, here is a plan that I put together for a full-timer. So if you're a full-time school or full-time work person and you have a limited weekday hours, here is a plan that might work for you. And this is what that looks like when scheduled out. So here is the 20-60-20 plan on the calendar starting tomorrow, Wednesday the 16th, and running all the way through Thursday, May 15th. Just remember to complete your hours here before the cutoff time on the actual Webtoon contest. And here is our spring breaker schedule, or if you are a full-time comic creator, if you have the ability to work on your comic full-time, this is the schedule that I wrote for that. And this is the calendar for our full-time spring breaker comic creators who have the availability to work in full 8-hour day during the week on their contest entries for the final month of the contest. And again, it starts with tomorrow, Wednesday the 16th of April, and it ends on Thursday, May 15th. Just make sure you're getting all of your time in, all of your assets submitted to Webtoon's website before the cutoff time, which I believe is going to be 6 p.m. PST. And last considerations, of course, is if you're working in a partnership. I'm sure there are other things to consider that I didn't think of and I didn't write down, but these are the ones that I had available and ready for you. So that's everything. Thank you so much for coming to my stream. I hope you guys got something really good out of it, and I wish you the best of luck on the contest. And we will see you guys again here shortly because I have more videos planned, and we're gonna focus some more on comic creation in future videos, especially for Webtoon. So if you haven't already, also please subscribe, and we'll be back again. And I'll see you next time. Bye.